So, for a long time, I thought good engineering is about delivering output and how fast you deliver in it, which means that how many tickets are you going to close in a sprint, how fast you closing them, and how much feature, how many feature are you shipping in a sprint, how much do you ship within a release cycle, and so on. Especially when you work in an agile team, these are actually good metrics. These are the straight away contribution that a team can look at you and say, hey, this is what you've been done in this sprint. You can actually take it and talk to your managers about your performance, your contribution is obvious, is visible, right? It's not wrong. Don't take me wrong. It's not wrong. This is normal. This is what expected. Shipping more does matter. Closing the pull request does matter. No, making pull request does matter. And delivering a feature on time does matter a lot. Those things help you grow. Those things help you build confidence. And if you are new to the team, this is the first way to build trust. But then at some point, it doesn't feel enough, especially when I climb up the ladder from mid level engineer to senior. I start seeing things differently. I was still writing code. I'm still reviewing pull requests. I'm still making PR. I'm still shipping things I expected to ship. But I start caring more than that. I start to think about questions beyond the scope of the works that I've been assigned to, and I start to ask the questions that no one asked or not yet been thought of, that identify the risk that wasn't show up in a ticket description, and start discussion about making decisions that clearly not belong to anyone, but still it need to be made in order for everything to be moved smoothly and have an impact for the long term. And that's when it click. That is when there's a difference between delivering output and taking responsibility. And once you start feeling that different in your daily work, it's hard to move away from that. So this episode is about that shift. It's about when we as engineers stop being just about how fast you deliver, but more into what you are owning. Like we say, delivering output is important. So let's talk about output, okay? Output in a way is very easy to recognize. It's you can say what you see, what you get. It's visible. It show up on the dashboard. It's the metrics in sprint report. It's how many, like I say, how many tickets you close in daily and retro. How many incidents you manage to solve. How fast you solve them. How many bugs you manage to close and make customer happy. How many pull requests merge. One of my colleagues that is very always very proud of how many pull requests he make within a sprint. It's not wrong, to be honest. It's something you should be proud of. If you manage to do it fast, you manage to contribute more, good for you. There's something comforting about that, something satisfying about that, because output is very, very concrete. You can always point back to it, like we say. You can always show it, measure it, and managers always can refer to it and say, "Oh, this is what Maya's done," and you can always be proud of this. This is what I did. This is what I accomplished. Right? It's from the team perspective, it even make more sense because the team need to find a way to track the progress, to track how you're doing, what your contribution, and the managers have to know the signal. And the project need to have some certain roadmap milestone that you accomplish. So you're shipping the feature on time, is mark a milestone, that obvious milestone for the project towards success. And if you're new to the team, you showing what the output you deliver, it gives the team a sense of confidence, a reliability, trust on you. So it naturally, we always optimize for things that we can see. We can actually work on it and see the satisfaction on it. So let's just say whatever can be measured is become a goal for us. My goal is to reduce the incidence from uh, like 10 cases to lower than 2 cases in one sprint in 1 month or something like that. That's the visible goal. And it's a signal of success. Think about if you get an incident, a critical bug, and you deliver the fix, and it will deliver to customer the satisfactions. The output of the bug fix is so satisfying that it make you happy and make everyone see your contribution right there. It's so obvious. Well, when it's like they say, it's the signal of success as some sense. Yes, it's not wrong. It's not a flaw. It's just how it works. It's just how system works. Acknowledgement comes from clear evidence, right? And this is especially true in early of your career. When you are a junior or mid-level engineer, output is always a good proxy for growth. You learn by doing, you learn by start fixing bugs, you learn the code base by shipping, by adding small tests to it and see it working well. You earn trust by being reliable, by delivering. Also, from there, you're building your confidence. So, closing tickets really matters. Moving things forwards really matters. But, and honestly, it should. I mean, we're not talking about trade off here. You always have to deliver an output. So you cannot, a project cannot move forward if you don't deliver an output. The user cannot use the feature if the feature is not developed well and roll out, right? So it's also a way to make sure that you develop in your skill, you develop in your experience. If you don't get to work on an to ship or to work on features, you will never learn, and that's how you build up momentum in the team, right? And that is also how to get the satisfaction feeling when you manage to close a long going PR and see it grow to the customer. So the problem is not about being delivering the output. It's the problem becomes when we start looking at the output at the only metrics to value ourselves. And if the system only reward you according to whatever is visible, then it wouldn't last very long. Because at some point, especially when you step up to the career path, you find yourself not about delivering output only. It's about making impact. Sometimes it's just the impact is not showing up at number. And that is when things become misaligned because you may not do as much as you think or as much as you used to do in a sprint because you were focusing your effort in other things that also important. So that is when responsibility come in. In a way, delivering output is part of responsibility. After all, first and foremost, we are responsible if we deliver according to the deadline, according to what we were expected to do. Whether it's just a functionality, a features, or bug fix, it doesn't really matter. First and foremost, being responsible means that you are delivering what you promised, what you expected, what you planned for the sprint. But delivering output, like say, is just a part of responsibility. So this more aspect of responsibility doesn't show up anywhere. It doesn't really define in a ticket. No one say you need to define the risk for that feature on a ticket. There's no clear owner for that. And there's of course because there's no clear owner, no one going to assign it explicitly on you. So when you think of it, responsibilities start much earlier than working on a delivery or an output. It's showing when you start planning for the implementation, when you start designing the feature based on the descriptions that given by the product managers. And when you get a bugs and you start thinking about all the aspect of the bug fix can be what is the side effect, whether this is critical or not, things that you think before something break, before they even have an incident, because you may not know the features you develop have will cause any incident. And of course, noticing the patterns, the repeated patterns, and try to come up with a solution that may make the development time a bit longer, but it will be good for the long term. And connecting those together into a one best practice or whatsoever. And that is when you start seeing decision or making decisions about whether it's good to do it now or to do it later, and see how your decision will impact other decisions that come up later. And it often means that holding the ambiguity a bit longer than you would like. Well, like there's no clear answer about that. And there's always not something that people will agree up front. And there may even not a visible, clear problem rise up yet from your questions, but you still have a feeling in yourself that something is off. There's some risk here that we need to raise. That's part of responsibility. That's not just the work you've done. It go beyond that. It noticing that that aspect of the work is not clearly defined yet. And here's the tricky part. You can be responsible for something and without anyone actually realize that you are carrying it. You can start to refactor, thinking about refactor the code base just to make sure that we don't have an extra code or duplicate code. Because if you're responsible, you see that you should use the reusable pattern because it's make it much better for the code base. But it may not go noticeable because you just do it as part of your work. Or you may be the one who asks the uncomfortable questions early, or slow things down by a bit just by asking questions to make sure it clarify every concern that you have, or pushing back gently if something doesn't feel right. For example, I once developed a features called a gallery of images, and we have to fetch the images from the server and catch it so that it would display offline, which is when the user are not in Wi-Fi mode. So on the image need to be prefetched. The question now is that's the definition, but then no one say about okay how many image are you expecting the user to fetch? It can be 5, it can be 10, it can be 500. So when we refresh the image, we have to find a way to scale it, and how to we going to store it in the user device to make sure that it will not take on the device memory, because image is very heavy. How are we going to load it efficiently in the offline mode? How are we going to prefetch it and catch it without showing that the synchronization take a long time just to cache the image so that the customer can use it without Wi-Fi? All of these are not defined in the product description. But asking the question will slow the implementation down because you still need to figure out how you do it. What approach is the best ways to do it? What the use the most scenario? What the risk if you do prefetch version or you say online only and so on and so forth. So that is when you notice the risk early, right? There's no bug yet. There's no one use this feature yet to raise the concern that hey, this doesn't work offline or it make my device memory like be full very fast. No one asking yet, but you ask the question, you raise a concern, and then you moving on to propose or research and propose a decision making to avoid something that can be severe impact later on. And maybe you just raise the concern and nothing will be done. I mean, nothing happened because the stakeholder wasn't interested in that, or maybe they already know about it. But still, you still need to raise it because you feel responsible for that. And that's the point. There are no ticket that you prevented because these are not showing in the ticket. These are showing in the phase when you start planning for your technical design, for the features, for implementation, that even not define the implementation yet. We don't even have a retro yet because there's no retro, but you still carry that responsibility, right? And that way, this shifting in mindsets making very confusing because usually responsibility is something that have no visible outcome. Why delivering output can be very obvious, but then when you feel responsible and then you raise all the concern and you start realize that hey, this project is not feasible at all, so we stop the project and we prioritize for something else much more sense. So technically you didn't deliver any output on this project, well, except for pausing the project, slow it down, and you still demonstrate responsible mindset. You still making an impact here that prevent wasteful resource being allocated to something that is not going to work for the long term. But it's not visible yet. There's also no clear finish line because delivering a features, delivering an output, delivering a bug fix is finished right there the moment you deliver it. But be responsible for what you deliver. It go way after that. It can go for weeks, for months. It's showing analytics, it's showing adoptions, it's showing how you care about the product and how you do the customer support afterwards. It's not done. It's never done unless the product or the project is dead. So you become accountable, but not in the easy way to point to. So you start to become more accountable, responsible, and making decisions together with stakeholder or along as the as the leader of the projects or as the leader of the features. Sometimes you need to make decision based on the formations that you have. Sometimes you make a decision where there's no clear informations, no clear authority, or sometimes you need to give the proposals to other stakeholder about what you suggest. This is when the engineering quietly changes. You don't just focus on, hey, I received the description of the ticket. I'm going to implement it. I'm going to deliver it. My job is done. No. It actually, when you stop producing the output for one moment and you start to look at the shape of the work engineering works that you're doing, it becomes more and more about evolution, about how to shape the work. And of course, being responsible doesn't come at free as the free cost. It is the change a lot of things on the way. So once responsibility become part of your work, something else change too. The work start feel heavier. You will start feel like a lot of things you need to consider, a lot of things you need to think of. It's not because you are coding more. Most of the time, you actually coding less, but because a lot of things you're holding accountability for. So one of the load that of that we call it the cognitive load, which means you're not responsible. Oh, sorry, no, you're not just um, focused on what the work in front of you, what the task in front of you. You are think about how to connect things together. So, like you have the task of adding unit test. So you start thinking, if I ask unit test to this one, how about building a framework that to make adding unit tests become much easier for the team and much more efficient because I saw that some of the tests are repeatable or some of the preparation for the unit test to load are repeatable and I should make it into a framework or infrastructure for that. And then you start to think if I add this, what other things may not work, may come in the future, may what the benefit for it compared to I'll just ignore it and go on. So you start thinking more. You start thinking about what might break, what might come back later, what might be the bugs in couple months later. And even though when you're not actively working on it anymore, you're still thinking in the background in your mind. Let's say you deliver the product, but you're still thinking about it. What can be improved from the product? What should be in the roadmap? What else can we make it better? That's not a visible effort. That's not something that anyone can see straight away, but it's more like a mental effort come from your side as being responsible. Emotional load, okay, or we call it mental load. So responsibility often means that you care about what you do, about what you were asked to do. So you worry about the outcome that you don't control. You worry, you feel accountable whenever that something is happening, or whenever the decision I share may or may not agree with that. And sometimes being responsible also means that being the person who asks the questions, wait a moment, are we sure this is going to work? Or is there any risk beyond this? Maybe we're missing something. And knowing that by asking that question, that can make things slowing down, that can make people stop for one moment and revert and review it. And not a lot of people like it, especially in a tech design when the one who wrote the tech, the one who wrote the design, just want to finish with it and grow and go on and implement it immediately. So he will cache the schedule. And then it makes him uncomfortable or her uncomfortable when you start raising this question. Are we sure about this is the right approach? But you have to. It's otherwise you know that they might regret it. We want to make sure everything is covered, right? Because you are responsible. So with this emotional and the cognitive load, the combination with this over time will add up. And this is where often we start feeling burnout and feeling a bit down. It's not about too much coding. Actually, the thing is, the nice things about engineer that the more you code, the more you feel, the better you feel by yourself because you're actually working with code, and then it isolates you from all the dealing with all the other issue emotionally. And the moment that you close the ticket, the satisfaction comes to you and to make you feel motivated to move forward, to go to conquer the next ticket and so on. But the burnout is mainly about carrying those responsibility, carrying those unresolved questions for very long, and being responsible without clear boundary. Well, and then this point you start feeling like the whole idea of delegate start falling apart, because being responsible is about you. You cannot really delegate the responsibility to someone. You can delegate tasks, you can delegate execution, but it's hard to delegate some concern. So how are you going to delegate ownership to someone? Well, you still need to feel, you still need to be responsible for it regardless. You can identify a risk, you can ask the question and then split it into subtasks, and then ask someone to go and research on those tasks to answer the question of concern that you have. But you still own the concern or judgment, or whatever that matters. So so that's very important. If the responsibility you are taking, the ownership you are taking, is acknowledged well enough. If you owning something or you're taking it upon yourself to be the one who responsible for it, without the team knowing it, without the system acknowledge it, or without the proper acknowledgement from your managers, it will become strain. It will become something called mm, dismotivation. Is that a word? And you may still be delivering your work. You're still showing up, doing a good job, but then you start feeling heavy and heavy. You still start feeling unappreciated. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means that the way you deliver work is have changed, and the measurement or the acknowledgement, it didn't catch up with the way you changed in your work yet. So that's something that the system have to work on. But just realizing that you're looking at your works in a different way beyond delivering the output and be more responsible, it changed your vision and changed the way you work. At least for me, I can never work in the same way before. I mean, it's not a dramatic one overnight. It's still learning about it. I can tell you, I still learning about it. And I still making the shift. And but now I start to be more focused. I start to think about where I can shift my attention to that will create the most impact. So one of the first thing is my scope. So before when I look at delivering output at my one and only important metrics, I start to try to do more things. I start taking every ticket. I start to go around and fixing small bug, taking more tickets, taking more on me, making sure that I won't be the one who closed a lot of tickets, PR in the team. But now I start to take less, and I start to try on to own a fewer things, but more focused, more deeply. So instead of being involved everywhere or being the first to respond, we still it's something I still learn to control about because it's hard to let go. I start to pay attention to where my involvement actual matters, and that's where I can maximize the impact. And this shift actually changed the way I start asking myself. And before, Usually, when I ask um, questions about a feature is always like this: how fast can we do this? How when are we delivering this? Can it fit in one sprint? Whether it's good enough, or should we need to wait to enhance it, perfect it, and so on. Now I start to ask other questions because these questions are pretty much straightforward. So then I ask more questions about, okay, what are the risks that we didn't see it? What happened after the shifts? What happened after the rolling out? Do we have other things we want to improve? How we going to measure analytics on this? How to measure the adoption? How we make sure the customer are happy and using our product? Who going to maintain it? And on the assumptions we have right now, let's say if we don't know about this user case, we roll out features that we know very little about the actual user requirement. On the assumption we make, are we okay with them? Well, those questions not necessarily will slow the implementations or the progress of the features, the product, but it changed the way that I'm optimized or you optimize for. So that's also changed the way I defined, how say, done. Okay, so done, it used to be a very obvious things like code implementations, whether when it's merged, whether it's not on time, enough time for QA, it still matter, right? Like in a Jira ticket, how we going to measure whether the feature is proper implemented? These are the things that we look at. When the code emerge, the QA is passing, the ticket is closed properly, or the regressions is done, testing automation passed with green color, and all of these still matter. But now it means something else for me. Done means more than that. It means that everyone's are comfortable with the trade-off. Like everyone, including the stakeholder, the PM, the managers, everyone knows the limitation. Everyone knows that this is the approach we chose, and this is the side effect. This is what we trade off for, and okay with that, and understand it properly. There's no surprise. Well, there's few surprise, but everything is communicated in advance, and we know what we expected, what we're going to get, and no one will be surprised at the end. That means that sometimes you don't wait for the products to be perfect. You shift it with limitation. You shift it with no limitation, and it means that letting something go, even though you may want to make it elegant and more clean. It's like I know that sometimes when I look at let's say a UI bug where the text, the color is a bit off. Like it's about 2 or 3 degree um, less gray than the design. But doesn't matter right now. But it's good enough to roll out and see how customer behave because most likely customer won't even notice it, right? So this, all of this understanding, all of this definition of done, the new definition of done for me, it doesn't make it work easier. It still gives you the feeling, oh, hey, we could have done better, more elegant. But it make it feel more honest. It make it feel like I know what I'm going for. We know what we're going for, and I'm fully responsible for the choice that I make. So the goal is not become doing less work. It actually become being responsible for the right work, the right things to do at the point that you chose to do it. So, as I'm wrapping up this episode, there's one thing I want to be very clear about. This episode is discussions. There are a lot of things here that I'm still figure my way. I'm still learning, and it's not a rule. It's not something like a best practice or as a standard that you're supposed to follow. And it's just a way to naming things that often go unspoken. we've been there, we've done that, and then you start realizing that delivering output is not enough. What are you go? What can you do to be better? So this is something that's something you want to think about. If you start feeling that your work become heavier than it used to be, even though you know that you're delivering, you're still capable, you're still doing a good work, and your manager start to say that, hey, yes, you're doing a good work, you deliver things, but not enough. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Very often, it's mean that they expect you to carry responsibilities that is not show up on the board. You start to think beyond that. You probably heard about the term execution in automations for senior developers. So this is part of that. They will not show in a sprint report, and responsibility will not show in the metrics, but it's showing on how you define your job, how you look further and start to own, start to find domain when you can own, or start to be more proactive in raising the questions, asking the questions, and making decision. And so I will leave you with the questions. And this is actually the question that I always come back more and more often myself also. So what are you responsible for right now at your work? Even if it's nothing clear, no one asks you to do it. Well, you know what? You don't have to have the right answer right now. Just think about it and start noticing it will be enough. If this episode resonates with you, you can follow Be with Maya on Spotify or Apple Podcast. And if you feel like you want to share what you're thinking through or what you feel about um, responsibility at your work, disagree, agree with me, doesn't really matter, feel free to reach out to me. And thank you for listening. And thank you for taking the time to think a little bit more intentionally about how you work. See you in the next episode.